Welcome to the Midsters Podcast, your podcast for inspiration on being bold and saying yes to making the most out of your midlife.
So, Marianne, are you the kind of person who makes New Year's resolutions?
No. But I have in the past. I just approach it a little differently. So I guess you could think of it as maybe it's resolutions, but not so much. I mean, I do have them, but do you want me to tell you what they are? Sure. Or what it's like? So the way that I kind of approach the new year is more as a vision board. So I kind of look and anticipate how I want my year to unfold. And it's usually about trying to be a better person or be there for my family in a different way. It's not showing up at the gym. It's not like counting my calories. It's not those things. Mm-hmm. But it's basically what I can do for myself and for others and how that fits in. And one would be talking about, gym and fitness. It's not that I don't have a goal. I'm going to lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, but I want to maintain my strength. How am I going to get through this next year being strong, being healthy for myself? How am I going to show up for myself so when I look at the next year, I'm not backpedaling? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually don't make resolutions, but it's because there's an innate fear of failure.
Aw.
Like, I don't want to start the year giving myself a goal that I'm not going to reach, and then I'm going to feel bad at the end of the year that I didn't reach it. So I appreciate the more backward-looking approach that you're discussing. I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
I think it does. There was a time I looked up how New Year started, because you think about Chinese New Year, everybody talks about it, but not so much us. And it was back in ancient Rome. Julius Caesar actually declared January 1st, New Year's Day, in honor of Janus, the god of new beginnings and transitions. And I think about that, not so much as goal-oriented and changing, but transitions and new beginnings. And there's something about, I think, humans, it's wired in us to want fresh starts.
I think what that is, I was thinking about this last night.
Yeah.
We had talked about having this conversation. I think it's because it's innate to humans to have hope.
I would agree.
We always hope for better. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of hope generally in ourselves or for ourselves.
Right.
And so that, okay, I can start over. I think the counterpoint, though, to that, which is why so many people ultimately end up failing in their New Year's resolutions, is as much as we have hope and we have aspirations, human beings don't like change.
Right.
And we are creatures of habit.
We are.
And so when you have a lifestyle that's largely habit-driven and you try to change those habits with a whole lot of enthusiasm at the beginning of the year, but not a whole lot of thought about how you're going to accomplish it, you do set yourself up.
In listening to you say that, I think when people they tend to make the same resolutions every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be helpful for us, for listeners, to sit and really think, why not? Why did I not meet those goals? And start with that.
Well, I think it starts even before that. It starts with the kind of goals you set.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I like what you just said a minute ago. It's a much healthier approach. Instead of going in and looking at things that you want to change, right? And big ticket items that are actually hard mm-hmm. to do and that are breaking and reforming new habits. Start with looking back.
Yep.
See what's gone well. Think about what you'd like to continue doing in your life. And then think about your relationships and the ones that you want to nourish and nurture and the ones that maybe you need to let go of, because those are easier things to build into your next year.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think also New Year's resolutions, and I do think about weight and exercise, other things as well, but it comes back to the relationship to yourself.
Yes.
Right? And so I think that sitting in that and knowing, like I was talking, like a vision board is basically like how I want to be, how I want to feel, and how do I get there?
Mhm.
I want to be healthy. I don't want to lose 20 pounds. I want to be healthy. And the other thing is, I think when somebody sets a resolution, they're thinking of this whole 12-month process like it's some magical thing. You need to have check-ins every week. Celebrate what you were able to do. Tweak it then. Don't keep going down that road of not being able to meet those resolutions. 85% of people don't meet their resolutions.
I think some of it is because we don't break it down.
Right.
So if your resolution is, which is constantly a resolution I have, I'm sort of like, what was it? Bridget Jones's Diary. She lost 10 pounds, but gained 15. So it's kind of, I always have a resolution of losing weight, but as I've gotten older,
Mm-hmm.
and now that I'm in midlife and I'm thinking more about the issue of nourishment and food and nutrition, right? Instead of saying this year, I want to lose 20 pounds, I might say, this year I'm going to focus on reducing the amount of extra sugar I have in my diet.
That's a good way to look at it.
Or this year I'm going to focus on eating more salads at lunch
Yeah.
instead of pizza.
Yeah.
Something that moves in the direction you want to move, but is actually in and of itself a very, pun here, digestible goal.
You're right. Yeah. Well, in the health and fitness thing too, I think that we do need to do that because
Otherwise it feels overwhelming. Like to say,
it
I'm going to go to
does.
the gym every day. You know me, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And if I set my year up saying, this is the year I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I can do. And I actually asked my husband for Christmas for a weighted vest. I walk the dog every day.
Yep.
If I put a weighted vest on to walk the dog,
Mm-hmm.
I am improving my fitness and my health. And that's an easy thing to take on, right?
Yeah.
Beginning of the year, I'm going to start wearing weighted vests when I walk the dog. But it doesn't feel like a challenge.
Right. And I look at it as basically increasing my strength
Mhm.
for the year. I want to continue maintain and to increase it. I want more protein in my diet. So these are things that you can think about every day. And it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to lose all this weight or I have to, be ripped with all these muscles. And I think you're right. It is breaking it down, but it's also celebrating it because those goals that you meet, because that is what's going to keep you on the trajectory, make you smile at the end of that you're actually accomplishing something. So 20 pounds, oh my gosh. But if you're going to incorporate, like you said, 3 more salads a week and this and that, it's actually going to lead to some weight loss or some healthiness. And if not weight loss, just a healthy state of mind, I think is super important. I remember, parenting, struggles in parenting. And when I would think about, okay, and the different ages, from when they're young to puberty to young adult, all of that, I really would think about like this next year, okay, what went wrong and what went right in my relationship with Hunter? What went right and wrong with my relationship with Kason, with Robert? What can I set as intentions this next year that may lead to a better relationship or better parenting? Like I made a lot of mistakes. We all do. Or I don't know, not big mistakes, but we learn because there's so many personalities in a home too. And relationships are different between each. And I think when people going into 2026, instead of being focused on these things that are so outwardly, I think it's really important to think about these things because those are the things that are going to make you happy. The
I think that's great advice.
friendships, the relationships. So for 2026, I've been thinking about this. It's going to be a big year. We're adding somebody to our family, and I am over the moon about it. I want to spend 2026 because it's towards the end of it, 3/4 of the way end of it, supporting them. What can I do to make this process easy for them? How can I build and nurture a relationship with this beautiful woman, Cassie, who has chosen my son? That is where I'm going to spend my energy.
So what I hear you saying is instead of thinking about the approach to the new year as setting resolutions, it's really about setting intentions.
It is. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for everybody. Some people need the resolution, maybe. I don't know. We're in different pieces of life. And this is obviously, we talk to midlife people is our demographic in general. And we have the luxury. We've kind of shedded like being caught up in how we look in that extra 5 pounds, that kind of thing. We've shed that. And we've just moved on to other things. And listeners know what we're talking about because almost every midlife person I talk to talks about that. It is about intention. It's about, wow, the last quarter of our life or half our life, how are we going to live that? And that's how we should set our resolutions and intentions.
And how do you take the information that you've gleaned from the earlier years of your life? So if you're someone who set, traditional resolutions and they were unsuccessful, how can you honor the transition point that the new year brings, as you just said, right? How do you honor that without falling into the same consistent trap of setting goals for yourself that you can't meet? And I think one way of doing that is by looking at the whole process a little differently.
Well, I think it is a process. So I think that, we are works in progress. And if we can focus on that, that's what brings happiness. I liked when you said earlier, you were talking about not setting resolutions because of failure. And yet people will make the same resolution and fail over and over. And that's so defeating. So find something that you would be successful at. And maybe it is, like you were saying, just adding a few things in on a weekly and a monthly basis. But also, don't just look outwardly, look inwardly at relationships. I think that's where it is.
Well, I think part of what happens when you keep setting the same intention over and over, or the same resolution over and over, and you keep failing at it, there's a point at which, and midlife is kind of a great opportunity to do this. Maybe what you need to do is set as your New Year's intention acceptance. I am not someone who is ever going to be interested in workouts and boot camps or anything like that. And in previous parts of my life, I tried those things, but I now accept. And that in and of itself is an important beginning of the year intention to set, to accept yourself where you are.
Right.
I'm not going to do those things. So let me start with that acceptance and then figure out what I can do and what I want to do. And as you said, how I want to show up for myself in my own life.
Right.
A piece of that is I think most people would benefit by thinking about not just the health and fitness aspect of life and the appearance, losing the 5 pounds thing, but like, where does your soul sit? What makes you happy, and how can you bring more of that into your life? For you and I, a lot of that is photography.
It is.
It's travel.
Yeah.
And, building time into my year and thinking about how I'm going to build in time into my year for the things that I love and that I enjoy. Spending time with my kids. How many times can I get to California or London this year?
That's where it is. But, the resolutions, like I told you, kind of the history, beginnings and transitions, it has become so commercial. And I think we're on autopilot, and I think we're socially conditioned that resolutions have to be about appearance, weight, all those things.
Sure, because then they can sell you something.
Right. We need to stop that narrative and really think what's best for us. If resolutions were a relationship status, it's complicated. Right?
Yeah.
And because everyone's in different places. But I think that if I were to tagline it as a relationship status, it's complicated. But it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. It should be uncomplicated.
Right.
And it should be something that helps you have a more fulfilling year.
And happiness. What's going to bring happiness to you this next year? I mean, truly, what's going to bring you happiness? That's more important.
So if we look at it that way and approach resolutions as intentions and more focused on enhancing and enriching your life instead of taking on challenges or giving up things you really like so that you can discipline yourself in some way, how do we make ourselves stay true to that, to stay true to the idea that we're setting new intentions, we're going to try to have a more fulfilling life? What kind of things can we do to make that a reality?
One thing that works for me general in life is I'm a visionary. And so I would look into 2026. How do I want my health to look like? How do I want my relationships to look like? So first I would like have that vision in my mind and I would hang on to it because I think you need to envision the end result, not like every day standing on a scale. I think it starts there. Have that picture and know you're getting there. You're going to be there. And then you just fill it in. And I think you have to think about that all the time. You have to have a vision of what your life is going to look like. It's the only way to do a plan. I mean, we envisioned what this is going to look like. If I were to talk about what I want in 2026 professionally or with the podcast, I've already envisioned that. And I know I want to show up more to encourage more people to listen. I want more people, more guests. I want to be inspired by other people. And so if that's my vision in at the end of 2026 to have 20 guests or 25 guests, I'm going to start like putting those things in place. But if I didn't have that vision that I wanted 20 or 20, I haven't even talked to you about this, that we will, and we'll blend our two. But I'm already thinking about how I want this to look like. And if I didn't, I'd never get there.
I think that's great. I would add to that, though, that I think it's also important to keep taking stock of where you are.
Right.
So if you
check-ins.
So, and check in with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that. You know, I know you like journaling. I actually, I know it sounds like a crazy thing, but I put notes in my phone.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Ideas that I have for things that I think, oh, that would be a really fun thing you do. I want to see if I can get that into my year. And then I can go back in and delete it from my notes so that I know I've done it. I know it sounds crazy.
It's a good way.
Yeah, no, but like documenting your journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And giving yourself credit where credit is due. We tend to do the opposite with New Year's resolutions. We set them and then we don't meet them or we stumble along the way and then we abandon the whole process.
Yeah.
Instead of saying like, okay, like I could give myself forgiveness if I didn't do what I wanted to do by February.
Right.
Let's see what happens in March, right? And just keep documenting that journey.
Mm-hmm.
You're a visionary. I'm a writer. So to me, it's got to be written down somewhere to really hit home. But it's the idea, what I'm trying to get at is the idea of breaking it down incrementally and seeing periodically, touching base with yourself. How am I doing this year? Mm-hmm. Am I doing what I want to do? Am I doing what I said I wanted to do? And if I'm not doing it yet, instead of giving up on it altogether, okay, what's one thing I can do this month to move me closer to my goal?
I think that's a great place to start too, right? Just the check-ins, reevaluating, tweaking. I think people abandon, you use the word abandon when they're not meeting their goals instead of tweaking them. And it's because they feel defeated.
And applauding yourself when you do make forward progress, even if it's not the forward progress that you want it. In relationships, you may have a particularly difficult relationship that you want to try to resolve in a given year with someone that you care about, but, you know, it's complicated, as you said. You know, applaud yourself when you have a good interaction or exchange with that person. Stop and really account for that because it's important in the larger scheme of things. Instead of saying at the end of the year, we're still not where we want to be, you know what, but we had these great exchanges this year.
And I think we're wired as humans, listening to you say this, we're wired as humans to have this reward system in our head. And I think what you're saying is basically like, it's the reward, embrace those rewards, and then you choose another one, and then it keeps going.
Break it down into small things that you can reward yourself for, right? You know, when you think of kids in school, if you get a gold sticker on your paper, that propels you forward to the next assignment, right? Little kids love those things because it's like, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. As opposed to when you're in college, and or not even college, law school, you only get graded at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You have no idea how you're doing. If we hold our resolutions like law school exams and only grade ourselves at the end, it's not going to look like we did very much.
That's true.
I'm talking about giving yourself a gold star week to week or month to month when you've done something that's consistent with the intention that you set for that year.
You know, another thing that I think would be helpful, and I actually do this with a friend of mine, she asked me about protein. So I kind of told her what I do, and I was definitely inspired by the trainer that that I use and that we had on the podcast, Isaiah Boak, about protein. And she's like, can we check in? Like, send it to me. But I need an accountability person on protein. And I will wake up and start my day with my collagen and my tea, those kind of things. And I'm like, okay, I can't let Sean down. Like, she's doing it, I'm doing it, and checking in. So having somebody, and I know you've thought about that because you've even you just recently talked about that to me, is the accountability piece, to find a buddy.
Having a buddy is so important. And it needs to be somebody that is not going to be judgmental.
Right.
Right. Sometimes spouses are not the best accountability partners. Sometimes they are.
Yeah, it's in different things.
It's different things. It depends.
We kind of know each other too much, so we accept, like, or join in on, okay, we're not going to do that today. I need somebody that's going to say, no, you are doing that today. I'm counting on it.
I think my husband is a great accountability partner when it comes to things about like relationship issues.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll call me out. Like if I say, oh, I need to distance myself from this person, their energy is very negative, and then I'm doing something with them, he'll say, I thought you thought that energy really was very negative. It's great. I love that he does that. But he's not good on the fitness stuff because he's got a very, I'm going to say, male approach, maybe more direct approach to fitness. He gets up every morning, he does his exercise, he goes to the gym, he's very rigorous about it. I'm not that. So if I say I want to get more fit, that's what he's looking for. And I don't want that. So I would want someone else to be my accountability partner for
like
getting in better shape.
Partner.
Like my pickleball partner, or but walking buddies.
Yeah. I do a lot of walking. I mean, that's how I keep up with friends, really.
Yeah. My best accountability partner on walking is the dog.
And she's a good one. And she will. Yeah, dogs do keep you accountable.
And she says, Mom, it's time for our second walk today.
Yeah. Same with Robert, as you know.
Yes.
I mean, he was not a walker until this dog. And I mean, he's just head over heels with her. And it's like, she can't, it's freezing cold right now.
Oh, I know.
It is freezing cold.
It's so cold here.
And he hates the cold, but he is not going to let that dog down. I think that's that's sweet that you said that.
That's a good resolution for people. By the way, if you want to do a traditional resolution, like the old fashioned kind where you take something on, go get a dog.
That's true. So Leslie Ann, do you have any other thoughts?
I think it's really good for people to look for sources of inspiration to help them through the new year. Just hearing other people's stories or other people's advice and then filtering it for what works for you or what not. And so in that regard, I would say, listeners, you could make a resolution to go on to the Midsters YouTube page and subscribe.
Okay, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think that's everybody approaches it differently. And I have a lot of friends that don't even do resolutions, like you said. But they'll have theme words.
Oh, I love
gratitude, hope, inspiration, health. And they approach it that way. And I think that's a good way too. I mean, every year they can kind of focus and build those habits into their life and it becomes part of it. It's kind of almost a simpler way of doing it.
I think if you approach it as building a new habit instead of a resolution, which feels like a one-time, the word itself kind of sounds like a one-off thing, but habit building.
Right. And I think when you think about resolutions, it doesn't transition into habits the way like intentions would or what
themes,
you're talking about.
Right. Or themes or intentions tend to become more like a habit-forming thing. So let's see if our wonderful producer, Elizabeth, has any thoughts about resolutions.
You stole one of my questions there that you just answered. Because, and maybe you can just restate and rephrase. Because I think one thing that you both talked about tonight or today that really hit home for me was the fact that you're shifting this from being an actual resolution to being more of an intention. So why do you think it is that intent or that resolutions oftentimes fall flat? Maybe someone's doing it for a couple of weeks, but then they're not doing it anymore.
So I think resolutions fall flat often for people because they're not thinking of it as a transforming or a transition into their life, like accepting a habit or working on something that actually the outcome of that at the end of the year is a positive, optimistic. When people do resolutions like losing weight, there's not a lot of optimism in it. But to think about, oh, wow, at the end of the year, I want to be stronger. I want to be healthier. I want to be happier. What is going to get me there? So I think when there are these short kind of empty resolutions that end up, especially if they've ended up in failure the year before, it's time to do a rewrite and look at intentions.
I especially think for women, a little bit of it is just kind of the way our minds work versus the way men's minds work. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the whole idea of New Year's resolutions is a very patriarchal kind of holdover, because it's this idea that you have a concrete task to perform. By the end of the year, I must do this. And I do think men tend to operate that way more than women do. We are more intuitive and we're more emotional, but I don't mean like emotion in a hysterical way, but we deal with our emotions. We lead with our emotions a little bit more. So I think for women in particular, it's easier to look at it, or more successful to look at it as an intention, because that's more consistent with the way we approach the world, right? I don't really want cold, hard tasks to perform. And then if I don't do them, or I'm delayed in getting started and it's March or April and I haven't done that task yet, I feel kind of overwhelmed and I give up.
Yeah, defeated.
Right. But the idea of setting an intention and sort of living into that and letting my emotions and my instincts lead me to a better state of mind, that's a lot more appealing, and that feels more consistent with my own makeup, if that makes sense.
It does.
I guess one of my resolutions for this year, or intentions for this year, and I'll leave it out there with our listeners, is to be more present for this podcast, to really spend some time thinking about what our listeners might want to hear. You talked about inviting more guests. I think that's great, and it is something we'll talk about. And we'll spend some time thinking about where do we want to go with this podcast? What do we think would be best for our audience? So we can work on that relationship.
That sounds wonderful. You can find us at AmericanMinstress.com.